Hey guys, welcome back to Advanced Bass Fishing, and appreciate you guys swinging by the channel today to watch the video. Guys, today we're going to be talking about one of my favorite summertime and early fall baits, and that's these little, I call them sub 1 foot crankbaits, little crankbaits like this. That they're not a wake bait, but they're designed to run less than a foot deep. So we're going to get into that in today's video. Stuff like the baby 1 minus, the 1 minus, and there's some different variations. These things are fun to fish and they're extremely productive this time of year, so we're going to dig into that. And also, guys, I will link some of my favorite sub 0 or sub 1 foot crankbaits. I'll link them in my Tackle Warehouse link in this video description. If you guys would like to order a few of them, you can use my link. It's a good way to help the channel out. Really appreciate that. And also, guys, you may have heard me talking about it. I do have my new YouTube channel started called Intuitive Angling Shorts. I'll put the link in the description to that too. If you guys would like to give me a sub on that, help me get off the ground, much appreciated. So just appreciate all the support, guys, really do there. Okay, guys, these things have been around a long time. The first ones that ever came out was the 1 minus here and the baby 1 minus. Now, these are sort of like wide wobbling baits, and if you reel them, it doesn't matter how light a line or how far you cast them, whatever, they get down to maybe that deep is about the deepest they get, because they got a little bitty tiny lip on them here. So basically, I sort of consider them like a cross between a topwater and a crankbait, because I fish them in sight. When I'm fishing these sub-0 type baits, I want to keep them in sight just like a swim jig. So how you fish this bait, as far as like how you reel it and your rod angle and all that type of stuff, is critical. So let's talk a little bit about how you want to fish it in terms of your rod angle and how you want to hold the bait. Because I tell you one thing about these sub 1 foot crankbaits here, if you don't work them right, in other words, if you don't put the right speed on them, and if you don't have them going underneath the water at just the right depth, you're not going to catch a fish on them. So I'll tell you one thing about it right off the bat is, if you try to get this bait to go over about, I don't know, 2 or 3 inches under the water, you're not going to catch many fish. All of the good bags of fish I've caught on this, and I've caught a lot of good bags of fish on it. I almost won a Bassmaster Top 150 at the Potomac River on one of them. Every one of those, I can see the fish hit it. The bait is so shallow that I can actually see the fish boil and hit the bait. So in essence, I'm wanting to keep this bait about 1 inch or 2 under the water. Now here's the hard part of it. I want to talk about what you have to look for, and I'm going to show you a little bit about your rod angle. You know that you're fishing it right if you throw it out there and you're reeling it across like that, that far into the water, and you can see that the water boils a little bit underneath it. And you want to keep that bait where you have a very, very subtle boil. You don't want it shallow enough where like it's boiling the surface, like very visible all the time. You want to get it where like you're reeling it and you see a little bitty boil, and then it disappears, and maybe another foot you see a tiny little boil. So that is the hard part of this technique, is getting it down to where you want it to make it look like that. And how you want to do that, it all has to do with your rod angle. So in other words, when I cast them out there, the first thing I do on these, it doesn't matter which one that I'm using, I'm starting out with my rod tip high in the air like this. Because if I have my rod tip down too low, I'm going to start digging it too deep, and it's going to get down 6, 8, 10 inches, and I don't want that. So when I throw it out there, I got my rod tip in about probably the 10 or 11 o'clock position, and I start reeling fairly fast. And you don't have to use, much. I use a little bit of stop and go retrieve, but most of the time I'm just reeling it consistent. And the speed you want to reel it at is just about like this. You'll never get a bite on one of these. If you reel it like this, coming through the water slow, you'll never get a bite on it. You have to burn this thing through the water. Not as fast as you can crank it, but you want to crank it about like that, where it's moving through the water about like this. About like that. That's how you want to crank it. So I guess it would be about, if you cranked it 100%, like if you're just going like that, you want to back it off to like 75%, sort of like that right there. And what you're going to have to do, and this is sort of the art form of this bait, because it's not the easiest bait to fish. I'll tell you guys right off the bat, there's a learning curve with it. As your bait gets closer to the boat, you got to drop your rod tip, because if you keep reeling it when it's high like this, it's going to blow out of the water. So if I make a cast out there and I start with my rod tip at 10 or 11, as I'm getting it about halfway back to the boat, my rod tip's going down to eventually where it's about level. And that way you can maintain that same depth under the water to get that little boil. Now, even as much as I fished it, a lot of times I don't get it right. Sometimes I get it down too deep, sometimes too shallow. But the way that I'm talking about, I'm always trying to hit that, you know, that sort of that fine line between the boil and not boil, boil and not boil. And when you get it, and it's critical to get it like that, guys, because when you get it like that, that's when your strikes occur. And I bet probably 80% of the bass I've ever caught on these baits here, which has been a bunch of them, guys, I've caught tons of fish on these. 80% of them have come when I hit that sweet spot of roiling the surface and not roiling the surface. So you got to work with that. Now, equipment for the thing, guys, you got to use some pretty heavy equipment. Most of the time, I'm fishing it on anywhere between 17 to 20 pound test Seaguar and Vizix line. You can use heavy line because you're not wanting to get the bait down deep. You want to have some type of a longer, some type of a medium action rod on it. The one that I use most of the time is like that, some type of a 7.5 foot medium action Megabass Levante high speed reel. I use that 7-to-1 ALTI Cast King reel. That link's in the description of the video too, and cover water with it. And the thing about this, guys, is where you want to fish it at, it depends a lot on the cover that you have in the lake. So let's talk a little bit about the best type of areas to fish this in. I have caught fish on this thing everywhere. I've caught them in Florida. I have caught them up at Lake Champlain. I wrecked the smallmouth one tournament up at Lake Champlain on them. Caught them down at the Potomac River. I've caught them at the James River. I've caught them all over my part of the country. I caught them in Texas on it. It works everywhere. It is a warm weather bait. This is a bait that I want to throw most of the time when that water temperature is over 75 degrees. Now, there's a little bit of a window in the fall time when it's a little cooler that it works, but for me, it's a warm weather bait. Warm weather, shallow cover, off-colored water, with the exception of smallmouth we'll talk about. So what you want to look for, here's the ideal situation. I like to have water temperature about 80 degrees, summertime fishing. I want to have some type of shallow cover. That cover, I've caught a ton of fish on dock corners and off the sides of docks on them, around any type of wood in the water, lay down trees, logs, stumps, that type of stuff. I've caught them over the top of grass. I've caught them along the edge of lily pads. Whatever shallow water cover that your lake has, if you have water visibility sort of in that 6-inch to maybe 1.5 foot range, that's going to be the key for your largemouth. Same type of places you'd fish like a spinnerbait or chatterbait or squarebill crankbait, same type of deal. You're not going to catch many largemouth on it just throwing it down a rocky bank. Most all the good fish, or fish in general, I've caught on it have come when I'm real close to an ambush point, like right alongside of a dock or right alongside of a log, anything like that. Shade helps out too. Okay, if you do fish for smallmouth up north, awesome smallmouth bait, guys. Burn it fast up there. Get out on those big clear water flats, you know, where there's mixed rock and grass. Keep that thing close to the surface, and those smallmouth will come out and just smoke that thing in gin clear water. So the smallmouth's sort of a different animal with it. But anyway, guys, give them a try if you haven't. They're a fun bait to fish. When those fish hit it, you're reeling the thing fast. So it's like when they hit it, it feels like they're taking the rod out of your hand. Super fun bait to fish, catches quality fish. Again, I'll put some links in the description of this video and my Tackle Warehouse link, and hope it helps you guys catch some good fish.